explaining the complex issues, breaking down the numbers, and investigating the issues behind the news. Anywhere and everywhere, near or far, wherever the news is, we will be there. Signature TV. News in your pocket.
Hurricane Eric unleashed damage along Mexico's Pacific coast Thursday, decimating restaurants and stranding dozens of fishing boats as a Category 3 storm battered the Oaxaca shoreline with winds reaching 250 kilometers per hour. The hurricane made landfall at 5:30 a.m. local time near Santiago Pinotepa National, marking the first major hurricane to strike Mexico this season. The storm in its wake left collapsed lifeguard towers and debris strewn beaches in Puerto Escondido. Local fishermen worked to salvage what remained of their livelihoods, with an estimated 25 to 30 boats damaged or destroyed.
The damage we have recorded includes the loss of boats, engines, equipment, and iceboxes. Restaurants have also been affected, losing chairs and tables, and damage has occurred in areas where construction is taking place, resulting in total losses. We are here to support our colleagues and anyone who wants to come to the beach to help us.
Coastal restaurants bore the brunt of Eric, with establishments reduced to scattered debris and furniture swept away by the storm surge. The storm center expected to move inland over southern Mexico throughout the day, with winds that could be especially destructive near its core, the U.S. National Hurricane Center said in a report. Up to 16 inches of rain is expected to hit the states of Oaxaca and Guerrero, according to NHC. The White House said on Thursday that President Donald Trump will make a decision on whether the U.S. will get involved in the Israel-Iran conflict in the next 2 weeks. Citing a message from Trump, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters, based on the fact that there is a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, Trump will make his decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks. Leavitt told a regular briefing that Trump was interested in pursuing a diplomatic solution with Iran, but his top priority was ensuring that Iran could not obtain a nuclear weapon. Said any deal would have to prohibit enrichment of uranium by Tehran and eliminate Iran's ability to achieve a nuclear weapon.
I don't believe we're seeing any signs of that at this moment in time. As for Xi Jinping's offer, I will leave it to the president to respond to that himself. What I can share is that the IDF and Israel, I think, have exceeded a lot of people's expectations in their ability to really hinder Iran's nuclear facilities, but also they've taken out key people in the Iranian regime's leadership as well. So this is something, of course, we are monitoring and watching every day, and the president was just in an intelligence briefing. He continues to be briefed by his National Security Council, and he will throughout the duration of this war and conflict. And he also remains in constant communication with our Israeli counterparts, most notably Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Look, Iran is in a very weak and vulnerable position because of the strikes and the attacks from Israel. And with respect to the president's statement, I shared that with all of you. And he has been very direct and clear. Iran can and should make a deal. We sent a deal to them that was practical, that was realistic, or they will face grave consequences. Look, the president hears all voices across the country, and he makes decisions based on his instincts. And he has always said diplomacy is his first option. Iran has all that it needs to achieve a nuclear weapon. All they need is a decision from the supreme leader to do that. And it would take a couple of weeks to complete the production of that weapon, which would, of course, pose an existential threat, not just to Israel, but to the United States and to the entire world. And I don't believe we're seeing any signs of that at this moment.
Leavitt declined to say if Trump would seek congressional authorization for any strikes on Iran. She said Washington remained convinced that Iran had never been closer to obtaining a nuclear weapon. Israel bombed nuclear targets in Iran on Thursday, and Iran fired missiles and drones at Israel after hitting an Israeli hospital overnight. As a week-old air war escalated, neither side showed any sign of an exit strategy. Iran has been weighing wider options in responding to the biggest security challenge since its 1979 revolution. Trump has kept the world guessing on possible U.S. involvement in the war, varying from proposing a swift diplomatic solution to suggesting the U.S. might join the fighting. Scientists of Weizmann Institute of Science in Rehovot looked on Thursday at extensive damage caused by an Iranian missile on Sunday. The strike on the institute came amid a barrage of missile and drone launched from Iran towards Israel in retaliation for Israel's strike on Friday. The extensive damage could potentially set back the research for years.
We were hit by an Iranian missile attack that was early Sunday morning. Several of our buildings were damaged. 2 of our buildings were directly hit. Luckily for us, there were no casualties, so there were nobody in the buildings. The buildings were empty, and I think that's the most important thing. None of our students, postdocs, faculty, researchers, nobody was hurt.
A lot of time to essentially recover from this, because some of these experiments really took a lot of time, and we collected tissues. For example, experiment that ran for half a year or 1 year, and you collect the entire process, you collect the tissues from, and you wanted to analyze all these tissue in 1 day, and you realize that there are no tissues. Everything is gone. I would estimate that it will take us about a year to get into a full gear of research and with everything working again. But again, I want to emphasize that some of this research we will not be able to recover.
A Kenyan court on Thursday sentenced 2 men to 30 years in prison for aiding a 2019 attack by militant members of Al-Shabaab group on a hotel and office complex in Nairobi that killed 21 people. Hussein Mohammed Adile and Mohammed Abdi Ali were convicted in May on charges of facilitation and conspiracy to commit an act of terrorism for helping the Al-Qaeda-affiliated terrorist group Al-Shabaab.
Had the convicts not facilitated the terrorists, the attack would not have occurred. Had the first convict not facilitated the procurement of false student identity cards, the 2 terrorists would not have easily traveled from Dagdale refugee camp to Nairobi without detection. Similarly, terrorists need money and people to commit offenses. They need finances for their activities, for planning and survival. Had the second convict not facilitated the funds, the attackers would not have been able to sustain themselves in Nairobi. First convict Hussein Mohammed Abdile is sentenced to 15 years imprisonment for the offense of conspiracy to commit an offense contrary to Section 23(2) as read with Section 23(4) of Porter. B. The first convict, Hussein Mohammed Abdile, is sentenced to 15 years imprisonment for the offense of facilitating a terrorist act contrary to Section 9A of Porter. The 2 sentences shall run consecutively. Cumulatively, the first convict shall serve 30 years imprisonment from the date of his arrest.
Al-Shabaab regularly carries out attacks in Kenya to try pressure the government to withdraw peacekeeping troops from Somalia, where Al-Shabaab's waging an insurgency to try to seize power. Prosecutors said Abdile and Ali helped 2 of the attackers obtain forged identity cards that allowed them to escape from a refugee camp and provided financial support. Adili and Abdi have 14 days to appeal their sentences. Delivering a ruling on Thursday, Judge Diana Mochache said that without their involvement, the attack may not have happened. In January 2019 attack, several gunmen stormed the Dutsi complex in Nairobi, triggering an assault and siege that lasted more than 12 hours. Kenyan government said at the time that it had killed all the attackers. Former Nicaraguan military officer Roberto Samcam was killed on Thursday in Costa Rica, where he was living in exile. His wife and Nicaraguan opposition party ENUGU said. Samcam, a retired Sandinista major, was shot to death in his condo on the outskirts of the capital San Jose. His wife, Claudia Vargas, told Reuters. Vargas later told local media that the attacker had presented himself as a delivery driver before shooting Samcam at least 8 times, then escaping on a motorcycle. Samcam was a vocal critic of the Nicaraguan government led by President Daniel Ortega, which human rights groups and the UN have accused of carrying out a violent crackdown on dissidents. The military officer fled Nicaragua after participating in anti-government protests in 2018, which were initially sparked by social security reforms but quickly evolved into demanding widespread democratic change. Another Ortega critic, João Maldonado, has survived 2 assassination attempts in San Jose. The most recent in January of last year left Maldonado, who rose to prominence as a student leader during the 2018 protest, and his partner seriously injured.
Today, at approximately 7:45 in the morning, the Costa Rican Red Cross was notified that an adult man had been attacked with a firearm in Moravia, San Jose, in the San Vicente sector, next to Lincoln Square. A support unit was sent to the location and found a man with multiple gunshot wounds and no signs of life. The scene was turned over to the corresponding authorities.
Israel attacked Iranian Special Forces headquarters of internal security apparatus in Tehran, said a Israeli military spokesman on Thursday. Israel bombed near nuclear targets in Iran on Thursday, and Iran fired missiles and drones at Israel as a week-old war escalated with no sign yet of an exit strategy for either side. As darkness fell on Thursday evening, Iranian media reported air defenses engaging hostile targets in northern Tehran.
We targeted the Special Forces headquarters of the internal security apparatus. The internal security apparatus is one of the main military bodies of the Iranian regime. Our attacks are aimed at each of the Iranian regime's military installations. They constitute part of the threat to the state of Israel. Our actions speak for themselves. Those who act against us pay a heavy price. At the same time as these attacks, fighter jets under the direction of the Intelligence Department completed a wave of surface-to-surface missile attacks.
Israel's sweeping campaign of airstrikes aims to do more than destroy Iran's nuclear centrifuges and missile capabilities. It seeks to shatter the foundations of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei's government and leave it near collapse, Israeli, Western and regional officials said. A defendant's lawyer in a trial of medical staff accused in death of football legend Maradona said on Thursday that a constitutional guarantee could prevent his client from being prosecuted twice for the same offense. In late May, the trial was annulled after an unauthorized filming of the proceedings. The trial will restart with a new tribunal. On Thursday, the 3 judges in charge of the trial who were drawn by the lot were announced.
Today, the oral court number 7 was drawn. There are already 2 judges from that court, and a 3rd judge was drawn. Now there is a period to see if the parties want to make any kind of challenges regarding these individuals. But the day the court is constituted, there will be another issue, which is the arguments that may be linked, which are the guarantees of non bis in idem, a constitutional guarantee that ensures a person cannot be prosecuted twice for the same offense. There is much discussion about whether there should be a sentence or not, and the reality is that the guarantee becomes operative even when there is no sentence. You must consider that the state cannot give itself the possibility of indefinitely pursuing a person. Especially in this specific case, a process that has been going on for 5 years with raids and prohibitions on leaving the country, which, due to a state official's fault, fell apart. Is it fair to make the defendants pay for the state's inefficiency in reaching a sentence? The answer is no, and the constitutional guarantee of non bis in idem supports this. This can make a double trial impossible. In technical terms, this doesn't mean the trial collapses. The process was carried out, but what happens is that the state was found to be deficient. In everyday terms, it can cause the trial to collapse and the case to end.
I advise my colleagues to read all of the rulings of the Court of Cassation to rule out the possibility of that request, of not prosecuting a person twice for the same offense, and if not, well, it will be decided by the court.
However, when asked about the statement, Maradona's children's lawyer, Fernando Bocalando, said that the rulings could rule out that request. The individuals accused in the trial include 7 members of Maradona's medical team charged with involuntary manslaughter due to the alleged improper, deficient and reckless care. Among the accused are Leopoldo Luque, Maradona's personal doctor and neurosurgeon, psychiatrist Agustina Kosachev, and psychologist Carlos Diaz. The professionals, alongside other doctors and nurses, were responsible for Maradona's treatment following his surgery. Proceedings also involved Maradona's family, including his former partner, Veronica Ojeda, and daughters, Jana, Giannina, and Dalma, who attended the trial as witnesses. Mexican authorities said on Thursday that a clandestine tunnel connecting the United States and Mexico underground was discovered amid pressure from Washington to curb drug trafficking between the nations, mainly the deadly fentanyl. A tunnel, the Secretariat of Security and Citizen Protection said in a statement, was 13.5 meters deep and approximately 600 meters long. Construction, it added, connected to San Diego, United States, from the border city of Tijuana. Inside the site, there was also a package containing methamphetamine and various items for transporting objects, it added. For many years, Mexican cartels have used similar constructions to traffic drugs, migrants, and various objects, and these have come to be known as narco tunnels, and so sophisticated that they have ventilation systems, train tracks, small wagons, and electric lighting. Meanwhile, Mexican authorities this week discovered a clandestine mini refinery in the eastern state of Veracruz, along with 500,000 barrels of crude oil they suspect was stolen from the country's pipelines. The government has sought to clamp down on theft of crude oil and refined products, as well as illegal imports known as ucachico, a practice that generates substantial losses for state energy company Pemex and the government. Security Minister Omar Garcia Harfuch said on X that during intelligence actions and overflights, a clandestine operation was identified. Produced artisan or alternative diesel, light, naphtha or solvents, and treated oils or light fuel oil, they said, all without the proper permits and operations that posed a risk to local ecosystems. Authorities discovered 500,000 liters of crude oil, as well as a production infrastructure that fed the country's illicit fuel market. A Pemex source said that although the discovery was not significant in terms of the volume, it highlighted the impunity with which criminals operate freely in the country, as well as the extensive network of complicity between various sectors. Separately, authorities were discovered 1.2 million liters of hydrocarbons, fuel trucks, and containers in the northern state of Nuevo Leon. And that's the news this hour. I am Barry Kumo Ado. Thank you very much for watching. Up next is Signature Morning. Stay with us.
We have male dominance in politics, which is number one. Men have dominated the political arena in Nigeria. We have educated women. We have women that have the zeal and the passion for politics, but the arena has been dominated by men. Men that, I'm sorry to say, they don't want to see women reach their desired position. So we have so many problems apart from the male domination. We have the religious problem, especially where I'm coming from. I'm coming from the northern part of the country. We have the cultural biases, we have the religious biases, which work hand in hand to bring women down during the political, in politics or generally in decision making in the country. So these three factors are the hindrance, what brought the hindrance in women participation or women inclusion in Nigeria. The hindrances, we've already overcome some of them. Because when a woman goes out to campaign, if you look at the campaign arena, you'll find out that we have a lot of women, especially from the grassroots. You find out that women constitute majority of the voters and mobilizers for their parties, for their candidates. And even if you go to polling units, you find out that 75% of the people lining up to cast their vote are women and children and youths. So women are mobilizers, and at the same time, women usually they come out en masse to support what they want. So that first hindrances we've overcome it, because we can always come out to vote for what we want and what we believe will bring the best for our interests. But when you look at the political institution, a woman will vote, but when the candidate attain to power, she will be overlooked. She will be overlooked, and women interests have been overlooked nationally and internationally. At the local level, at the state level, at the international level, women interests are overlooked, in the sense that women are given negligible positions. Women have not been included in the decision making or in appointment by the political parties or by the governor, which we are calling from the state, from the national level, that women should be included in the decision making as stakeholders, as position holders in terms of appointment, so that we will have a say in politics. Since we have our votes, we mobilize, we gang up, we have loyalty, we have all what it takes. Less women have a voice, less women have a say. And when I talk about the religious biases, we've overcome the religious biases in the sense that women have been urged to come out to vote and to be voted for. It's not against our religion. It's not against our religion, and we've been doing that. We have so many educated women that are politically vibrant. Looking at the women coming out to vie for political positions, women are ever ready to come out en masse to support women, so that we'll see what will happen when women support women. Like the campaign we are having right now, that is women supporting women in the parliament, that will bring a lot of fruitful, encouraging atmosphere for women to be voted for. Like if you take for an example, if you look at the National Assembly, we have only 3 women in the Senate, only 3 women out of the 109, only 3 women are the Senate. So if we have women, a lot of women coming out to vie for Senate seats, a lot of women will come out to encourage them to be part of it, so that we'll have a lot of women senators. When you look at the state, the House of Representatives, we have only 17 members, women. only women, only 17 in the National Assembly. Out of 366, we have only 17 women, which is very, very negligible number. We need to do more. Women need to come out en mass to support women so that we will attend so many positions, viable positions, important positions in the Senate and in the National Assembly, at the state, at the local level, even at the national level. So women supporting women is a very important issue which we need to address as women.
Good morning and welcome to a new day. Today is Friday, 20th June 2025. The week has come to an end and the weekend is here again. And as always, we have our newspaper headlines and review for you this morning. My name is Uchenna Chimdi Oluoha. We'll delve right into that after this timeout. Welcome back, and we're going to start with the Nation newspaper. Green bond oversubscribed by 91.4 billion naira. 47.36 billion naira allotted. DHQ steps up action against killers in Benue. Akume leads peace panel. Natasha's trial for defamation against Akpabio, Bello begins September 23rd. That is on page 3. And over 250,000 Nigerians are refugees in Libya, Cameroon, others. Governors lift food distribution hurdles across states. Nigerians will enjoy good governance. Tinubu, Kaduna rising again after overcoming insecurity. President inaugurates projects. Kaduna will return Tinubu, says Abbas. Colonel Umar bags CFR. And that is it for the Nation newspaper. And moving on to the Daily Times. Terrorism charges, Kanu opens defense July 18th. Alleged defamation, Senator Natasha Akpoti docked, granted 50 million naira bail. That is on page 14. FG settles 1.2 trillion naira pension backlog, launches boost for 223,000 retirees. Kaduna visits, President Tinubu honors Dangiwa with national CFR title. Senate leader explains increase in Rivers 2025 budget proposal. Toga rallies West Africa against neo-colonialism at ECOWAS meeting. And finally, on the Daily Times newspaper, police nab 54 suspects in major crackdown in Akwa Ibom. That is on page 7. And now on to the Daily Trust newspaper. We have Benue, residents harbored killers, gave them food, defense chief. Ground rent, FCTA silent as 14-day grace period expires. Obasani turned Kaduna from toxic zone to hub of progress, President. Tinubu to choose running mate after convention, says the presidency. And that is it on the Daily Trust. Now to the Vanguard. Benue massacre, troops got wrong intel on attackers' movement, CDS. Survivors cry out over poor feeding, living conditions. That is on page 5. Israel-Iran conflict, Trump to make war decision in 2 weeks. That is on page 8. And we have Zenith Bank navigating CBN's prudential measures with confidence. That is it for the Vanguard newspaper. And now we're moving on to The Guardian. And on The Guardian, we have experts reveal 50 million Nigerians with sickle cell warn against stigma. 1,500 killed in over 100 tanker accidents, NEMA discloses. 6,260 terrorists killed, 5,365 civilians rescued in 2 years, says DHQ. Violent attacks, peacetime killings question value of Nigerian life. That is on the big story pages 4 and 5 of The Guardian. Ibas alleges sabotage at budget defense as Senate reiterates democratic rule. Again, Tinubu inaugurates specialist hospital named after him in Kaduna. We have tension in Benue as herdsmen graze farmlands, youths intercept boss. And finally, on The Guardian, TCN accuses politicians, saboteurs of vandalizing electricity towers. On the Punch newspaper, we have Dangote blames crude shortage as imports from US surge. Israel threatens Khamenei after Iranian missiles wound 240. Food inflation. NSA, 36 states launch joint action. FG governors agree on free flow of goods across states to dismantle checkpoints, harmonize levies. Ribadu heads interministerial panel. Governors worry over World Bank funding delay. And that is it on the Punch newspaper. And on the Nigerian Tribune, Tinubu admits missing some names on Democracy Day, confers CFR on Dangiwa Umar on page 3. Dangote blames shortage of domestic crude oil for reliance on imports from US. Insecurity. Southern Middle Belt leaders lambast FG NAS. Condemn Forest Guard scheme, say emergency rule in rivers illegal, unconstitutional. That is on page 5. And that is it on the Nigerian Tribune and on our newspaper headlines this morning. And we have Chris Maduka here in the studio for the review as usual. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Uche.
How are you this morning?
I am well, thank you. And you?
I'm very well.
It's written all over you. And thank you for all the people who have joined the Signature TV this morning for our newspaper review.
Yes. Now, let's look at the headlines we have this morning. Natasha's trial for defamation against Akpabio Bello begins September 23rd. We also have granted 50
Uche, I suspect you are bringing feminism and gender issues here. Why is it Natasha the first thing you have to ask about? But that's interesting. They are all stories we have to review. Natasha trial for defamation against Akpabio and Bello begins September 13. But they're all silent about the second attack on Natasha's home. There are news yesterday that Natasha's home has been attacked the second time, and the police confirmed such attacks. While they are pulling the woman around for just because she said, he accused somebody, that somebody said, come and make me happy, that every high trouble increased since that make me happy issue came up. I wish her well. As far as she's sure, she's saying the truth. No matter how people suppress and threaten, the truth will always resurface someday. We only wish her well, and that she should also be safe. Because any man who is surrounded by threats and enemies must always sleep with one eye open. It's an old saying, and don't ask me where I made the quote from, because I am from where the quote originated. So, initially, I didn't know that the former governor of Kogi State is also involved in the defamation But now, Barrow's name is suddenly appearing among the people that Natasha defamed. Well, good luck to, sorry for the people defamed, and good luck to the defamer. They should see us in court, hoping that the court will be as objective as possible to look at the case objectively and not be partisan. Over 250,000 Nigerians are refugees in Libya, Cameroon, and others. And over 5 million are refugees in Nigeria, in IDP camps. And the numbers are rising. Why are we always seeing? I know these are Nigerians, 25,000.
250,000. Yes.
In Libya alone, Cameroon, and others. So if you aggregate it, now when you come back home, add up the ones that are refugees in Libya, Cameroon, bring them to the refugees inside Nigeria. You see that Nigeria, we're not at home. Oh. Nigeria is not at home. Nigeria is not at home. And we are pretending, wanting to sound politically correct. Any community that is missing one by one and they are laughing and taking it for a joke, they will never remain, they will miss and miss until they go into extinction. This is only 3 countries. There may be other countries of the world where Nigerians are refugees. Because of hardship and hunger, Nigerians want to jackpot by any means possible. And some of them run into trouble, they jump from fire to frying pan. And this is it. Why don't we want to sort the issue of the sickness and leave off the symptoms? Because if home, Nigeria is safe, nobody will want to go anywhere to be a refugee.
Yeah. And we have Kaduna rising again after overcoming insecurity.
Well, it has to come from the people in Kaduna and not political correctness sources. Kaduna should tell us, because there was a time, Kaduna faced what Benue is facing. And a section of Kaduna were most hit. A section of Kaduna indigents were most hit. Those times it was Kaduna's turn of insecurity. It must not be like all negative all the time. If Kaduna rise again, hooray! Thank God and thank President Bola Tinubu, who is telling us that Kaduna is rising again after overcoming insecurity. When it was Kaduna, the number of people that died in Benue, Plateau, died in Kaduna that time. I don't know whether the dying has stopped or whether the killing has stopped. But whatever it is, if we want to choose the path of positivity, Kaduna rise again. Let all the states in Nigeria rise. Let us overcome insecurity. But we know that better soup than money maker. It's not by mouth or political statements that Kaduna will rise again. It's by action, political will to make Kaduna rise. And even any other city or state in Nigeria that is down because of insecurity, we all pray that they rise again.
Yes.
Let's move on.
And now we have FG settles 1.2.
Kaduna, this is important. Colonel Omar bags CFR. Colonel Omar is somebody who he has 9 lives. It's good that we talk about him. Colonel Omar sometimes escaped death was accused of being involved in coup in Nigeria. He passed through all the hurdles of court cases and martial, and today he's coming out with CFR. Fortunately, the president said some names were missed in the list he had. But what we only was kama abiagencha sibia late. Here na so we abiagencha. Mana only be late we can take. What we refuse is not to attend at all. But even if you come late, we accept. So even the late remembrance of Colonel Umar in the award of CFR, Commander of Federal Republic, it's still acknowledged. Thank you, President Bola Tinubu, for acknowledging Colonel Umar, a man with 9 lives. Congratulations, Colonel Umar. Nigeria has eventually recognized that you're a man who is ideologically true, standing on in firm on what you believe. And today, in 2025, they recognized and rewarded you. Congratulations.
All right, now moving on, we have federal government settles 1.2 trillion naira pension backlog and launches boost for 223,000 retirees.
This is wonderful, Uche. We have a lot of retirees among us, and the worst thing that happened to any Nigerian now is when you look at how retirees in Nigeria are being treated, you ask yourself, is this how I'm going to be when I retire? So it gives you, it makes, that's why most Nigerians, Japa, it's on you to look at their parents and they say, Papa, now so, Mama, now so I go there when I get to your age, I better begin early to sort myself out, because this is a country that does not recognize the blood and sweat of people who built their nation. How can somebody serve a nation for 35 years as a civil servant, and then during retirement, to get the gratuity, he has to bribe? If he cannot bribe, he will have to be called every day. Every day, Nigerian government states, we call people for accreditation, biodata verification, and I keep asking myself, are these retirees, do they mutate? You have one central database of all retirees. If a retiree dies, his name will go off. Why every day you call all of them, both of them that are shaking like lily, very old people, and some of them will go for verifications and they will not return home alive? So you see, why all this punishment on pensioners? So if the federal government has paid backlog, it's a good thing. Federal government, do not, for God's sake, allow another backlog to accumulate. If you settle them ahead of time, somebody's already retiring on the path of winding down. Some of them are very old, and you are owing them backlogs. Will you pay them in the grave? Most importantly, corruption. Corruption, sleaze, wickedness is found in Nigerian pension scheme. Because even the people working in civil service today are involved in making sure that the people who retire do not get their pension, and they will not benefit from the blood money. And they want to, when they retire, get their own. Whatever goes up must come down. Whatever goes around comes around, Uche. So the measure by which you give people who have retired now and are suffering, you're seeing them, is the measure you get when you retire. For when a slave sees how a fellow slave is being buried, let that slave know that's how they're going to bury him or her when he dies or she dies. That's proverb of bone and silence for you Nigerians. But how long will these things happen to you Nigerians and you learn? The thing keep happening. Everybody is waiting for his turn. A miloko, a woloko. When it comes to your turn, will you be alive to see it? God help you.
Yes, and it looks like it's not just Colonel Umar that...
They gave so many people.
Yes.
I just picked Colonel Umar. The president said a lot of things came up in his head. They were forgot, and they now have to give them what you call the emergency or national award.
Yes.
But it's the award all the same. It's still national, whether it's given today or yesterday. So we recognize the president for at least ensuring that he told Nigeria he forgot earlier to do this, and he did it.
Exactly.
When he visited Kaduna.
And now the defense chief is saying that the residents of Benue harbored the killers and gave them food.
It's an indictment on our security forces, which the CDS is also part of. If ordinary Nigerians don't know anything, and because of the awareness, if Nigeria begin now to create, every Nigerian should be trained on security awareness. How to identify what is happening in your neighborhood. Because if people come, Nigerians are resilient and hospitable people. If people come and say, give me water to drink, I am thirsty, I give you water, you drink. They even give them food. And you don't have any place to sleep, they harbor them. How do we know whether they are killers? And if they are killers, they are coming from somewhere, which they say intel. A lot of indictment on the securities, and the CDS is opening his mouth to say. So if these people came, stayed in with the Benue people, ate, dined and wined with them, and did other things with them, and then later attacked them and killed them, whose fault? Some people are paid to secure the people. And if that security was broke into that security and entered Benue and sat down whining and dining with people of Benue, and the people who are seen from top with their radar didn't see that, whose is indictment on the security? There are certain things they shouldn't be saying in the open. I'm sorry to say. But that they'll give you the job of guarding us, and at the end of it, you said that you entered my house and saw that I've been killed because I wine and dine with you. How did the man who wine and dine with me enter? But you are supposed to guard the door. You are the gatekeeper of security. So indicting ourselves and blaming and talking, and it's not. Whatever has happened, let's make sure that what happened in recent past do not happen in recent future. That's all we ask. So it's unfortunate that we're getting that from the defense chiefs. They said so many things, but this open indictment is telling us to turn around and say, are we actually on the right track? But good luck, CDS. Let's say, I remember when the president was calling you, Christopher, where are the killers in Benue? Egbetoku, I know he was calling. I don't know whether you have answered that question. So all these ones that the residents harbored killers gave them food. The people of Benue State can give anybody food because they do kola nut with food. They are the food basket of Nigeria. That is not another thing. If they know they are killers, they won't offer them all those things. So somebody would have told them, these people are killers. But that's by the way. Let's leave that to the security.
All right, ground rent, FCTA silent as 14-day grace period expires.
Yes, there's always a limit to some things. So if you give grace, if you go as Pentecostal churches these days, you have ordinary grace, you have extraordinary grace, you have abundant grace, then you have everlasting grace. So the grace that is coming from FCTA has passed ordinary grace, is entering new level of grace. So we are watching. I'm sure their mind of granting grace to certain offices will not expire. But is the PDP own? I don't know. They might grant because a land of over 34 embassies are involved in this. So it means you have to think about diplomatic grace. Think about Nigerian political grace. And if you have to give diplomatic grace, you go to embassies. When you come to political grace, then PDP must pay because their ground rent is over. But it's also an indictment on whatever the history of FCTA, that some people will owe ground rent for that number of years, and we are just discovering it. But let us be objective in all our dealings, because the history will be written over every of our action. I remember that song that is very popular with Anglican people. They used to call it CMS. They say, only by our works we shall be remembered. Only by our works. We will fade away like stars of the morning. But by our works we shall be remembered at any time. It's very, 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 very a big song that calls for reflection. Nigerians, of course, most people do not know about it. But the ones who know about it, if they remember that they will be remembered by the works they've done in Nigeria, they should be very cautious about what they do and say.
Yes. Now, moving on, we have the Israel-Iran conflict. Trump to make war decision in 2 weeks.
It's high time Trump make war decision so that we know what is happening. Because the Iranians are mainly what the reprisal attacks. They attacked a hospital in Israel, which over 230 people are wounded. They didn't tell us people who died. And it was a big hospital, one of the biggest, was attacked. So you can see, like I said earlier, when I was reviewing this issue, that greeting don't pass ankle level. So it's now turning into a big fight. And what the world should watch, that chicken is scattering human feces somewhere. And all the non-allied countries and the NATO, everybody, even in Africa, are saying, it doesn't concern us. It doesn't concern us. Let us get interested in Iran and Israeli war, because we are talking about the problems of Africa. If the world gets back in the third world war, will Africa survive it at this level of our development? And the third world war is going to be analog and digitally fought. And Nigeria is still between the bridge of analog. So we have to be careful and get interested. So once we see such chicken, let us pursue it, because we don't know who will eat it, the leg when it is. If this war broke up and all the world powers begin to align, like USA is being accused of aligning with Israel. If Russia align with Iran and France align, and all the aligning will go, when the two elephants begin to fight, the grasses will suffer. Let us begin to pray. If it's only what we do, Nigerians are good prayer warriors. But beyond being prayer warriors, we have diplomatic moves we have to make. So begin to call the world and UN to look at what is happening, because it can blow up into a global war, which becomes fight for all. That is all for free for all fight. Anybody you see, you kill, become the state of nature. And that will open more room for whatever we already are trying to fight in Nigeria. It will divert attention, and then everywhere will become porous.
All right, we are running out of time, but before we go, we have Iba's alleged sabotage as budget defense, as Senate reiterates democratic.
Whatever brought Ibas is a sabotage. So whatever people are doing, sabotage begets sabotage and sabotage until they go there. So whatever they're talking there is sabotage. Even the people talking are saboteurs. The man who is accusing them as saboteur. Everything they're talking about so it's difficult for me, because I'm not a saboteur. I cannot review issues of sabotage. That somebody came under a saboteur or sabotage situation, and you want me to review, and now he's crying foul. How can you, accept to be a friend to a man who is living with a disability, probably a hunchback woman? You accepted to be her boyfriend. And now, but you don't accept to carry her up and down. If you have a woman who has a hunchback as a girlfriend or wife, now you're going to carry them up, carry them down. So let the bus carry the National Assembly up, carry them down in their sabotaging up and sabotaging down. All in one that the River State people have found a peace. They find a way of giving up to them. Let them go in their sabotage. When they are tired, they will give them back their state. You can't hear anybody from River State. I respect River people. I never knew that. They just went flat. Sabotage yourself. When you finish, give us our state back. Because soldier come, soldier go. Barak remain. River State people are praying for time of sabotage, whether you call it emergency rule, go to Abuja, present budget. When you finish, we'll take back our state. Because whatever goes up must come down.
Yes.
And then Tinubu to choose running mate after convention. Did they choose to return Tinubu after the convention? APC National Working Committee has met and adopted Tinubu as returning running mate and the leader, flag bearer. And they left the... I thought is whenever the snail is crawling around, they will crawl with his shell. And left the Okoliko. I thought Shetima and Tinubu are the drivers of hope in Nigeria. Why at this time they are looking at themselves with a double eye? They will settle that when they go back to it.
We still have a lot of headlines. Yeah, we still have a lot of
another
headlines.
presidential, what they call it, is a long time.
Yes, but
to
we
wait.
don't have time on our side anymore.
I know.
Thank you so much, Chris Maduka, for your review this morning. And we'll go right into our conversations of the day in a moment. Stay with us.
Every second, every minute, every day, news is breaking. Events occur and there are new developments. At Signature TV, we follow these stories objectively, bringing all sides without bias, explaining the complex issues, breaking down the numbers, and investigating the issues behind the news. Anywhere and everywhere, near or far, wherever the news is, we will be there. Signature TV. News in your pocket.
With a population of about 36 million people, the Southeast is awash with stories. Every day on Southeast News, we tell the peculiar story of the Southeast and her people.
Our Southeast should be the Silicon Valley of Nigeria.
Their successes, achievements, and daily challenges. Do you have a Southeast story to share? Community achievements and challenges, completed and uncompleted projects, bad roads, water scarcity, erosion, flooding, insecurity, or even disagreements? Bring it on to Southeast News. On Southeast News, no story is too big or too small. Southeast News. Let's tell our story. Showing on Signature TV every weekday at 4 p.m. WAT, 1600 hours GMT.
Every second, every minute, every day, news is breaking, events occur, and there are new developments. At Signature TV, we follow these stories objectively, bringing all sides without bias, explaining the complex issues, breaking down the numbers, and investigating the issues behind the news. Anywhere and everywhere, near or far, wherever the news is, we will be there. Signature TV. News in your pocket.
Welcome back, and now we're going to be discussing President Bola Tinubu's visit to Benue State with Nick Agule, a global economic analyst, joining us via Zoom. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to our viewers globally.
All right. Now, from
hear
your
me?
point of view, how would you interpret, the significance of President Tinubu's visit to Benue State?
Thank you very much. The significance of the president's visit to Benue State, to me, is on two fronts. First, the president, as the leader of Nigeria, came to visit Nigerians who are traumatized from the events that have happened in the recent past. These killings that brought the president to Benue State are not one-off activities. They have been happening for a long time. The one in Yewata was like a high point where the number of people who were killed have numbered more than 200. So it was the right thing to do for the president to visit Benue State by himself, to see for himself the damage that has been done, and to speak to the people of Benue State so that we will feel that our father has come to see us. And then the second point of the visit was that is the president as commander-in-chief of the armed forces that has deployed troops to Benue State in one operation or the other to tackle this banditry and insurgency. And it was good for him to also come and interact with the troops that he has deployed to the front lines so that they too will have their morale boosted and the president can hear directly from the people of Benue State and the troops that he has deployed to this place. So for me, that will be the significance of the visit of Mr. President to Benue State within the week.
All right, but why do you think it took this long, for the federal government to make a move to actually visit the state, considering that this incident has happened more than once?
Well, it's unfortunate that even though we say we're in a democracy, our leaders are hardly behaving like Democrats. Because democracy, by way of definition, is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. So if this government is for us, then like you have rightly said, the president should have visited Benue, Taraba, Plateau, and some of the other states that have faced a lot of troubles. It wouldn't have been this time. And let me tell you, it is unfortunate, but the reality on the ground is that it had to take the protest by the citizens of Benue State to make Mr. President to come to Benue. To tell you that Mr. President did not plan to come to Benue, regardless of the fact that 200 people were killed in one single night, killed by bandits who up till now, we don't know about them. To tell you that the president was not prepared to come to Benue, the president was actually on his way to Kaduna State to commission projects on that Wednesday. But because there was a protest in Makudi, and this is where the whole thing is very painful. These politicians only react when they see that perhaps an action is going to lead to electoral losses for them. Because the people of Benue pulled out in anger, in frustration, with their grievances and with their hearts boiling to protest. And immediately that protest happened, Mr. President had to alter his program and say, oh, I'm not going to Kaduna State on Wednesday again. I will not go to Benue rather. And it is quite unfortunate that we have leaders who don't seem to even understand with the people, who don't feel the pains of the people. We have leaders who are aloof, but this is the kind of leadership that Nigeria has got. And it's at all levels. What we're saying now is not only for the president, because even the governor of Benue State never went to that Yerwata where this thing happened. He only went there the day before Mr. President's visit, which was the Tuesday. So this thing happened in the night of Friday going into Saturday. And the governor on that Saturday rather went to another local government where a former military governor of Benue origin was buried. He didn't go to Yerewata. When he came back from that burial on Saturday, he didn't go to Yerewata. Sunday, he did not go to Yerewata. Monday, he didn't go to Yerewata. It was because the people now poured out to protest on the Sunday that on Tuesday, the president now sent the chief of defense staff, the service chiefs, and the inspector general of police to Benue. That is when the governor went to Yerewata first time, Tuesday. And then the next day, Mr. President arrived. So it's terrible that we have leaders whose the only way they hear is protest, and when their political interests are at risk. But it is in the hands of Nigerians to reject this type of leadership.
The president as well, even though he visited Makurdi, also did not visit Yelwata. So what do you make of that?
I was very surprised that the president could travel all the way from Abuja to Makurdi, and yet will not go to Yelwata. The road to Yelwata was flooded, and so the president motorcade could not gain access to go to Yelwata, which I find quite troubling as a reason, because it then means that the people who are handling Mr. President's movement did not even know that the weather in Makurdi was going to be raining on that day. Because if they had done their own analysis and planned the president's route properly, they would have known that Makurdi was going to receive a lot of rainfall. And then if they anticipated that the road would be flooded, then they would have made provision for the president to fly with a chopper, with a helicopter from the Makurdi Air Force Base where he landed to Yerewata, which is a chopper flight of maybe probably like 5 minutes. The chopper would have taken the president to Yerewata, and then he would have seen for himself the damage that has been done. And then he would have now returned back to Makurdi to hold the town hall meeting. So you can just see, that the people of Benue and indeed Nigerians are always being taken for granted by the people who are supposed to be our leaders. So it was unfortunate that the president came so close to Yelwata, but never went to go and see Yelwata, because for me, if he had gone to see the damage that has happened in Yelwata, perhaps it would have given him something to think about, because in his mind, based on the information that is being fed with, Mr. President is told that what is happening to Benue and perhaps from some of the other states that are facing this insurgency and banditry is in the president's words, as he said it, that they were reprisal attacks and that this is a conflict between warring parties. If the president went to Yewata, he would have seen that Yewata was reduced to rubble. But the people who came to attack Yewata, where is their own place reduced to rubble? Because that is what it means by a war. A war is never a one-sided thing. Like Russia is fighting a war with Ukraine now. You know that Ukraine is receiving bombardment. Russia is receiving bombardment. Russia, people are dying there. Ukraine, people are dying there. In Yerwata, can the president tell us how many people are dying on the side of those who came to commit this genocide? Does the president even know them? So without the president, because you see, Mr. President asked the Inspector General of Police in that town hall that why have you not arrested anybody? That is to tell you that they don't even know anything. So if you don't even know the other people who came to commit the genocide, how do you now come to the conclusion that this is a war or the conflict is between warring parties? Who are the other parties? You know, so this is the situation that unfortunately is playing out.
All right, and additionally, public holiday was also declared in Benue State, on the day of his visit. Now, would you also say that that is some sort of lack of priorities?
Well, so first and foremost, it would appear that the Benue State government confused a condolence visit by the president with a state visit, because some of the activities that they were putting up will indicate a situation where the president is on a state visit. So when the president is on a state visit, he's coming in happy times, he's coming to commission projects, he's coming to sit and watch cultural displays and dances and things like that. That's what you do in a state visit. So you put up your best for the visiting dignitary, in this case, the president. Someone was coming on a condolence visit. So even if the state government wanted to declare a public holiday because of the visit of the president, it would have been on a different note. It wouldn't have been on a celebratory note or come out and lay out the red carpet, let all to see the president, children line up the streets and wave to the president, which is what would normally happen in a state visit. The government would have simply asked people to stay at home and mourn the dead. Is a government that could have, during the public holiday, declared that flag should be flown at half-mast as a memorial to the dead. Even the school children that were brought out to the streets, they could have been led to hold vigils within their schools so that their hearts are tuned to what has happened. Because you see, killings in Nigeria are no longer taking the kind of emotions that should follow when death, especially mass deaths like this happen. People are being led to think that people can die and here we can celebrate. These children would have been led to mourn. They would have been told that when lives are lost, it's not a cause for celebration. It's something you have to reflect upon. You mourn and you demand for better governance. That is the kind of thing that should have happened. But the state government got it totally wrong, and they took steps that looked as if Mr. President was coming on a state visit. I hope they have learned from this, and they will have to do things better next time.
Yes, and in his visit, the president spoke about, land grabbing and fighting land grabbing. Now, what structural reforms do you think the government should take to tackle this issue of land grabbing?
So, if you go to other countries, there are countries where you cannot buy agricultural land. If you want to buy land in a town or city to build your home, you can be given a certificate of occupancy to that land. But if you want to go and buy plain land that is used for agriculture, there are governments around the world that restrict the sale of such lands. Nobody buys such land. You can only lease such lands. Lease it, use it for your agriculture, but the land belongs to the indigenes of that place. Because look, if you go to a place and you buy up the land in that village, what have you said? You are actually telling all the generations that come after now who come from that village that they don't have a home. They no longer have a village because their fathers, the current ones now, have sold their village. So where will they now call their homeland? There's no more because it's been bought over. So this is the reason why governments elsewhere don't sell agricultural land. And I think that is the kind of thing Nigeria needs to consider. You know, by Nigeria's laws currently, all lands in Nigeria are under the control of the states by the Land Use Act. The states control the land, and that is why it is the state governors that sign the certificate of occupancy. But we can have legislation at the national level to ensure that people are not allowed to buy agricultural land, so that everybody who has a village will continue to have a village. Those who want to come and do agriculture in your place should just lease the land and be paying lease renters to the indigents of the place, and that will continue into perpetuity, so that even the generations that will come 1,000 years from now in those villages will still be enjoying those lease renters from lands that they own, not lands that have now been sold out.
All right, and also we saw, the formation of a peace committee of ex-governors, traditional rulers, and some elders. Now, of what relevance do you think the formation of this peace group, will be to the community or to the states?
There is nothing wrong in forming the peace committee. Every war is fought on two fronts. When you are fighting a war, you fight it with kinetic power, which is bullets and guns. You also fight it with non-kinetic power, which is reconciliation, meetings, collaboration, and trying to settle this thing around a round table. So a war is fought on the battlefield and in the boardrooms, in the meeting rooms. That's how you fight a war. So there's nothing wrong in setting up that committee. But there is everything wrong if, whilst as we set up that committee, the war on the battlefront is not happening. Because as we speak today, Mr. President has come and gone. If those bandits return to Yewata today or to any other community in Benue, what is stopping them? If there is nothing that Mr. President, by his visit, has put in place to stop the bandits from attacking Yewata or any other community in Benue or even anywhere else in Nigeria, then he has done nothing. Because you see, everywhere in the world, the rule of engagement is that if there are active gunmen who are facing the citizens, the government must respond with gunfire. You cannot have an active gunman who is shooting down citizens and your solution is let's go and sit in a meeting room to discuss peace. It doesn't work that way, right? So anywhere else in the world, once an active gunman shows up in a community, the government will face that gunman with firepower. And they will give the gunman two options: surrender to be arrested, or we fix you an appointment with God immediately. So that response must happen. For so long as the active gunman has not laid down his arms, he must be faced with guns. Whilst you now take time to now take the forensics, gather the forensics, and say, where did this gunman come from? Was he sponsored? Did he act alone? Did he have collaborators? Where did he get his arms? Who helped him? And what are his grievances? What agenda does he have? Those come after you have suppressed the threat to the communities, right? So for me, Mr. President has done. What has Mr. President put in place to prevent an attack on communities in Benue or elsewhere in Nigeria? And for me, I cannot see how an attack can be stopped, even if they come back today. And it is quite sad.
All right, and also there has been no mention yet of, compensation of these farmers and, things like that. So now, beyond condolences, what exactly do you think that the government's plan should be for economic recovery of those people who have been affected by this incident, and as well as those who have been displaced too?
The people who have been affected by this incident have been more or less abandoned. That would be my summation. It's unfortunate because their needs are many. First and foremost, their homes were burnt down. They need their homes to be built back. Their harvest, which they kept in those homes, were burnt down. They have to find a way to start feeding and get back their seedlings so that they can start their farming again. And then their people were killed. Imagine that in a community like that, if 200 people or more have been killed, it means almost everybody in that community would have got a relative who was killed. So these people are traumatized. And the government needed to come in with counselors to help these people to recover from this trauma. There's something we call trauma healing, because the people who are traumatized are not going to act normally. Their lives have been terribly shattered. And now they are also thinking that, what if we sleep now and those bandits come back again? That's another level of trauma, So there has to be enough security presence that can withstand an attack of this nature with the people so that they can feel that now the security here is so strong that if these people come back again, the security will destroy them. Has that been the case? Is that the case in Yerwata now or any of the other communities spread all over Nigeria? Answer is no. And in other jurisdictions, I say this thing to another TV stations. In other jurisdictions, the government uses technology to arm the citizens to become the first line of defense. And how do I mean? Anywhere else in the world where you go, if citizens notice something, whether it is not yet a security threat, but it's something that is not right, or a natural security threat, they just pick up their phone and they dial an emergency code, which in places like the UK is 999, in the US is 911, 112 in some other countries like that. But that system is there. So that when the citizens now dial 999, it immediately alerts government to the fact that there is a security threat in this place, and government responds to that security threat. So even when the citizens have something like that, their confidence level, their morale is boosted because they believe that, look, our government is only a 999 call away. So if people come to attack us here, we can call our government and our government will respond within minutes. Nigeria does not even have a simple system like that, So you can see that the people are so traumatized, they fear for themselves, and also they are mourning their dead. They don't have food again. They don't have homes, and these are the areas government should address. For me, the president didn't even mention anything like that. It would have been so good for him to have called on NEMA to go and support the people of Yewata and all the other communities that have been ransacked by these bandits. So again, the government is not pressing all the right buttons, unfortunately.
All right. I still have a lot more questions for you, but unfortunately, we've run out of time. I hope we continue conversations like this. I look forward to having conversations like this with you, in subsequent times. Thank you so much for your time, Nick Agule.
Thank you so very much also. To be honest, I will wish that we are having better conversations on how we can grow food for Nigeria, provide electricity, get Nigerian travel by trains, provide housing, water, electricity. These are the kind of conversations we should be having. Conversations arising from multiple deaths like this is what we don't want to have. And I think the President Tinubu needs to ensure that we don't have this kind of conversations going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, we'll go on a short break and our conversations continues right after.
Every second, every minute, every day, news is breaking, events occur, and there are new developments. At Signature TV, we follow these stories objectively, bringing all sides without bias, explaining the complex issues, breaking down the numbers, and investigating the issues behind the news. Anywhere and everywhere, near or far, wherever the news is, we will be there. Signature TV. News in your pocket.
With a population of about 36 million people, the Southeast is awash with stories. Every day on Southeast News, we tell the peculiar story of the Southeast and her people.
Our Southeast should be the Silicon Valley of Nigeria.
Their successes, achievements, and daily challenges. Do you have a Southeast story to share? Community achievements and challenges, completed and uncompleted projects, bad roads, water scarcity, erosion, flooding, insecurity, or even disagreements? Bring it on to Southeast News. On Southeast News, no story is too big or too small. Southeast News. Let's tell our story. Showing on Signature TV every weekday at 4 p.m. WAT, 1600 hours GMT.
Arlaw Street is a major link that connects Thinkers Corner with Emene, New Haven, and the ENUGU to Abakaliki Road, amongst other areas of the state capital. It is also a connection to some schools, churches, and housing estates in the area. And with the current closure of the entry into Abapanike, Arlaw Street Abapa has provided an alternative route to road users, including those connecting the Enugu-Onitsha Express Road. However, the current deplorable state of the road, especially this rainy season, is bringing untold hardship to commercial and private vehicle operators who have to contend with the incessant breakdown of their vehicles. Some tricycle operators plying the route outline the challenges they face on a daily basis and the resultant cost of repairs.
The state of road in Thinkers Corner is that, let's say, some of these roads in Thinkers Corner, some of them are spoiled and they need government to put eye on the road, to control the roads. Because some roads here is linked to so many directions like Abapa and MNA. So this Thinkers Corner has many routes. It has many places that it leads to. So government should put eye on this road to make it solid and make it okay. So it can help some other roads, like all this, to stop those roads at Abapa Junction and some other places like Abapa 2. So this road too can help too.
The condition of road in this Thinkers Corner is unbearable. It was so bad that I was into thinking if maybe the state governor had forgotten Thinkers Corner. Because it took a load of some of the roads here, who that are operating as a commercial tricycle. Sometimes we bought tires which are supposed to last for 12 months, sometimes 6 to 8 months they have spoiled. And the maintenance of keke is not easy as people may think because of the bad road what have been costing us. So you may get money today, tomorrow you use it for mechanic. So it's nothing to write home about.
A resident, Josephine Okwefuna, while acknowledging the efforts of the state government in road rehabilitation, appealed for equal attention to be given to Thinkers Corner as a vital link between Abapa and Emene, as well as other strategic areas.
We had a lot of bad roads in this Thinkers Corner. And I overheard there was a guy I went to, because I'm a member of Community Chaplains, Community Psychology. So one of the government participants in this group happens to come there. So they gave the man microphone to talk, and he was speaking that the governor have awarded 20 roads to Thinkers Corner. So that's good about the government, understand? But he should do it fast because the rainy season is around the corner. You know, if you want that aside, they are doing work there, doing the gutter, you know, but the rain is disturbing them.
The importance of good roads to development and its numerous other benefits, including increased economic activities, enhanced safety, improved access to services, and environmental benefits, makes it a basic necessity. And as often said, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. In other words, what is good for residents of other areas is equally good for residents of Arlaw Street and Thinkers Corner as a whole. Raymond Ken Mbata, reporting for Signature TV.
Every second Every minute, every day, news is breaking, events occur, and there are new developments. At Signature TV, we follow these stories objectively, bringing all sides without bias, explaining the complex issues, breaking down the numbers, and investigating the issues behind the news. Anywhere and everywhere, near or far, wherever the news is, we will be there. Signature TV. News in your pocket.
Welcome back, and we're still on President Tinubu's visit to Benue State, and joining us via Zoom we have Gideon Duyum Iyom. He's a public affairs commentator. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
hear you.
All right. Now, before we go into the details of President Tinubu's visit, what exactly do you make of, the tragic incidents, the killings and the massacre that, happened in Benue State just a couple of days ago?
Sorry, I didn't get that question very well. I just heard the concluding part of it.
All right, I'll take it again. I said before we go into the details of President Tinubu's visit to Benue State, what do you make of the tragic incident, the killings and the massacres that happened in the state a couple of days ago?
Thank you for that question. But I want to say this, and I want to put it on record, that case was one out of many. It was not just an isolated case. There are so many attacks that have been carried on strategically and constantly within the Benue communities here in the past 12 years. So the Yerwata incident was not just an isolated case. It's a strategic, continued, and systematic acts of violence that has been carried out on Benue communities. So on the 13th of June, it was raining in Yewata when the attackers invaded that community in the still of the night, when defenseless civilians were assumed to be safe, sleeping in their safe haven. And I want to also make this clarification. They did not attack these people in their homes. They were attacked in an IDP camp. It meant that these people were displaced from their various safe abodes. They moved into somewhere they felt safer. It was in that safe, it was in that assumed safe position or place of safety that they were attacked and killed defenseless.
All right, now moving on to President Tinubu's visit. Now, what do you make of his visit to the state? Of what significance is it to the people of the state, particularly those who were affected by this?
Well, I keep saying, and I want to say this very clearly. Leadership is about engaging the people. President Buhari did not come to Benue State because it was an act of benevolence. He came to Benue State because it was his duty, and the Benue people expected leadership to respond to at least the massacre or the genocide that had taken place in Benue. So leadership should always find ways to engage in the people, not just when they are in trouble. The people of Yewata were attacked on the night of 13th June. There was no government presence or any act of engagement with them until within 48 to 72 hours before engagement came. And that engagement came basically because the people were agitated. They went over to the streets and protested. It was that protest that ignited national consciousness and got the whole world talking about it. That was when the president decided to visit. If you follow the events or the itinerary of the president as was released before his visit, he was scheduled to be in Kaduna for some project commissioning. But because of the protests that had heralded Benue State on Sunday 15th, 2 days after, that got the nation in mourning, that he decided to change his itinerary and focus to Benue. So his coming to Benue was very welcome. We welcome the president to have taken that initiative to come to Benue State. However, the coming would have also transformed to physical actionable points or actionable decisions that will further assure the people of the government readiness to secure our borders and secure our people from the constant killings that were going on unabated. And I also want to put this on record, that the attacks in Benue, most of the attacks in Benue that have happened in the last few years, especially those that come within the border connecting Nasarawa and Benue, all those attacks originate from Nasarawa. The attackers come from Nasarawa, attack Benue communities, and vanish back into the Nasarawa state the corridor. So this has been a constant occurrence, and nobody has been able to quell that. I was expecting that with the president's visit to Benue, that corridor he will set up an investigation panel to investigate why those attacks are, why the Nasarawa door is open to attack Benue communities. Because you have a case where you have a neighbor who is hostile to you, smiling with you, but housing enemies that are killing your people. So that is the situation we have in Benue, and I was thinking that the president will have a briefing, because from what he came to Benue and said, it is obvious that the president has has not been properly briefed, or he has not received enough security briefing to give him the correct picture of the nature of attacks that were going on in Benue. At least one positive I took from that trip was that his visit to Benue availed him the opportunity to have the real situation on ground and change the narrative of what the president had believed to have been the issue dealing the issues of security in Benue State. His visit also availed us the opportunity to have a direct conversation with him, which that direct conversation also led to new approaches that we are expecting that henceforth the president will be able to use the new knowledge, use the new information, and then give a new security directives that will be able to give Benue people the needed security they
But
deserve.
did it really give him the true situation of things on ground, considering that he did not actually visit the local government, the Yelwata local government, where this particular incident occurred?
Well, I would have loved that the president goes to that site and verify things and feel the emotion of that attack. He missed that opportunity to see the emotion, but at least he was able to feel it, because the Totif, His Royal Majesty, Professor James Ayache, was able to convey that message in very strong, emotional, bold, and courageous words that were able to hit the point hard. And I believe that before the president came to Benue, he had received security reports about the incident, and he was coming with some solutions he had prescribed, but coming to listen to what the Benue people had to say through the Totif, that had changed the prescriptions he was coming with. If you follow his response, you would have read through this this message that he Benue with a different prescription from what he was told by the people of Benue State through.
Gideon, are you still on the line?
That was going on in Benue. That for that magnitude of yeah, I'm still here.
All right, go ahead, please.
So for that magnitude of killing that has been going on in Benue State systematically and consistently, one would have expected that the president wouldn't have just been getting to realize 2 years into his government that this is the consistency and the nature of attacks that were going on in Benue State. So you would have seen that there's a wide leadership gap. His coming availed him the opportunity to get this gap closed up. So we are pregnant with expectation that the president will be able to, now that he understands the real situation in Benue, he will be able to proffer real solutions that will end this killing.
All right, but looking at his reception in the States, first of all, a public holiday was declared in Benue. And then we also have people coming out, on the streets to sort of welcome him. It was looking more like a state visit rather than a condolence visit. Now, what exactly was that about? What do you make of that?
Well, leadership has its gap. People have different models and approaches to issues. If I were in charge to coordinate the visit of the president, I would not have a fanfare. But other people have their own reasons how they do their own things. I will not judge them for what they do. But I can only say that the public also has a way of seeing things and the way they interpret things. So you have your own model of doing things, but you cannot also control how the public perceive your actions. And if you are in leadership, you should be conscious of how the people you are leading perceive you. Public opinion is very important. It's a very important component, part of leadership. So if you have a feedback of how your people react to certain actions you take and it doesn't resonate well with them, then you know that you haven't acted in place for the people. So I want to think that the people of Benue State, those who coordinated the reception of the president, to rather be a fanfare, they have failed to convey the emotion of the Benue people, the people who felt grieved, who were mourning the killings of their people. They definitely were not represented by that kind of reception. I will not admit to that kind of reception to represent my interest. So that's the way I feel about it.
Now, given the state of the violence that occurred and even the ones that have occurred previously, now what does it say exactly about our security operatives and our security system here in Nigeria, particularly in a state like Benue that is very prone to these issues?
Well, I would like to approach this from this perspective. Our security architecture is built on analog systems, and that will not work and function for a digital world. There's no way you will solve problems of 21st century with analog solutions. It's not going to work. Take, for instance, the war between the war between Iran and Israel. Now, we're talking about autonomous weapons in the 21st century, and Nigerian soldiers don't have the requisite training to framework. And that's a big bother to me. Take, for instance, the porous nature of our borders. Take, for instance, the topography of our communities. We have very large open communities, large expanse of land that are uninhabited. It means that we have very large open ungoverned land. And then you have a central security structure that is being controlled centrally. And then you expect a command structure to come from the center into the grassroots where the crisis or the theater of crisis is. You see that there's already a gap. And then when you are fighting such a war with analog systems, it already puts you in a disadvantaged position. So first, security has to be about the people. And if security has to be about the people, it has to come from the people. But the security architecture we have in Nigeria is not from the people, it's from the government. And what do I mean by from the people? Community level security structures must be set up in Nigeria. And that is why I welcome the comments of the Chief of Defense Staff, who say that credible and willing youth should be trained at community level to help facilitate the process of securing their communities. That should be the way forward. And again, training of security personnel, as well as security investment in IT infrastructure is very important. And one of my fears about this current system is that we have a system where technology is available and terrorists are well funded, and they can have access to some of these weapons. If the terrorists lay hands on some of these autonomous weapons before our structured or conventional security system, you can imagine the havoc they'll be able to carry out with such weapons. So we cannot take for granted investment in security, training, infrastructure, and deployment. And I think that if government is not thinking in this direction, they should start to think urgently, because autonomous weapons are very much around, and these terrorists are well funded, and they can have access to such weapons, and that will not be a good sign for our communities. This should pose a serious threat and challenge to anybody who is in charge of security policy development.
All right, and also, do you think this is more than just maybe a security issue? You know, maybe things like scarcity of land, or maybe lack of economic alternatives for both the farmers and the herders. Now, do you think this is also one of the causes of these killings and invasions, you know, in the area?
Well, most scholars we discuss these attacks or invasion along different scholarly theories, but I don't want to look at those ones. I'm looking at the reality of what we have on ground in Benue State, for instance. These terrorists are coming into Benue with an agenda that has been continuously pursued in the last 1 decade and a half now. They are coming into Benue at this stage not because there are contestations over land use. They are not coming to Benue because they are in demand of land, that the land is insufficient. They are coming to Benue to grab our land. The danger is that they are pushing out the ancestral and indigenous people who have been original occupants of these lands in the last 400 to 500 years. So where are you pushing these populations to? As I speak with you, there are large populations in Benue that have been permanently displaced in the last 50 years. They have not laid foot on their ancestral homes. There are people in those communities that if they have their loved ones die or dead, they are buried in new settlements. So there is this consistency of these attacks and evasion with the same pattern: come in, kill, push them out, and occupy. So this is not just about contestations over land, because the land is large enough. If you come into Benue, you want to sell land, you will never lack land because the land is very massive. There are still large chunk of lands in Benue State that is still not cultivated for a very long time. There are still open lands that if you give room to ranching and if you give room to farming, everybody will be smiling without death occurring. There is this pattern. There's this pattern that's been going on, and a narration that has gradually becoming a norm. That herders are looking for land, which I think is also posing these questions. If herders are looking for lands, there are laid down guidelines and rules that govern such things. In democracy, nobody has the monopoly. Nobody should have a monopoly of violence except the government. But it seems that the herdsmen or the terrorists or their sponsors have found it very comfortable using violence as a way of intimidating and killing people and pushing them out of their legitimate ownership of a land resource. And if anybody want to give that a credibility, then it's unfortunate. But I think that given the framework of democracy, everybody is entitled to their way of life. We cannot stop the herders from being herders, but we want them to also accommodate other people's rights within their rights of herding, so that the people with the right to farm will also farm. So what regulates this relationship? It is the law. Are they acting within the law? No, they are not. How can you feel that you have need for land and then the justification for you is to kill other people so you take over that land? That is unacceptable, and it's not even, it shouldn't even be a discussion on the table.
All right, so this sounds like an issue of land grabbing, by these people. So, and the president actually, vowed to fight this issue of land grabbing. So now, in your opinion, in what ways do you think that the government can, tackle this issue of land grabbing among the herders?
Well, society is not regulated by mere conscience. Society is regulated by law, order, and sanctions. But in a place where any of the tripod of law, order, and sanction is weakened, the society can no longer hold together. And I think that the Benue State people have also drawn the roadmap to this crisis. They have gathered and agitated for the government to give them a law that protects them, more like I built my own, build a legal fence around Benue community so that nobody will have the justification to walk in freely and graze, thereby causing the skirmishes, in quote, as they love to call it, or conflict over land resource. So we secured our borders, locked it up with the open grazing prohibition and ranches establishment law of 2017, which came into effect in 2017. And we were of the assumption that states would also follow this example, and then all our states will be protected such that anybody who comes or who wants to do animal husbandry or go into animal production, we go through the guidelines, secure approvals, and set up ranches so that you do not have reasons to incur into the rights of farmers doing their own legitimate farming as well. So this is what I feel, that the government of Benue State should be encouraged to protect their citizens by the federal government giving the state backing to protect the citizens through the instrumentality of the Benue anti-grazing law.
All right, and then the president also had a town hall meeting with governors and some traditional rulers and some security heads. In your assessment, do you think that these high-level meetings would offer any form of real policy changes, or it's, you know, just one of those meetings where they sit down and they talk and at the end of the day nothing happens?
One takeaway from that, the president town hall meeting, was his declaration that there should be an elders committee that should be formed with the past governors, the current governor, the traditional rulers, and they should sit together and marshal out a plan on how we can prevent this occurrence from further degenerating. So I think that that was a positive outcome from that town hall meeting. But I also want to say this: there is nobody that can sit alone as a leader and have monopoly of knowledge to do everything by themselves. So I think that that stakeholder engagement is very important aspect of leadership that shouldn't be ignored. And I think that stakeholder engagement should not just be about when there is a crisis. It should be a continuous exercise between the led, the governed, and the led. So in the case of Benue State, we have about 3 or 4 former governors who are from Benue State here, and they have various experiences that are still valid, that will still be very useful, stemming from their experiences, their weaknesses, their strengths, and having been on the saddle and now being as spectators, they would have been better placed. The reason why you have players, in the game of football, the reason why you have people who have played on the field do better as coaches is that they have passed through the tough. They understand the game. They know the 90 minutes strength of a player. So when they are sitting outside, they are able to tell you that in the first 30 minutes of this game, this is how you should push it. So if the leadership will come together with the past governors who have had various experiences in leadership, I believe that they'll be able to marshal out a plan. And if they sit with the traditional rulers, I also feel that that's a positive direction to go, because these are the people who are at the grassroots. We have a situation where the president has admitted that he was given a mixed security briefing. So if that is the situation, you can imagine the positive impact of this town hall meeting. And you should also see that calling for regular town hall meetings will not be out of place. I do believe that leadership should be about engagement. If you are leading people, you should be able to have constant conversations with them so that you are able to understand their issues firsthand and not depend on third-party engagement to give you reports of what's happening among the communities. So this should be a constant issue. I mean, this should be a constant engagement between our leaders and the people, and with that, we will be able to bring all our resources on the table and see which will work for us now, which we can wait for later, and which will be adapted to end this crisis.
Now, let's look at the humanitarian angle of this and the role of NEMA. Now, looking at Nigeria's humanitarian architecture, do you think that we have the capacity to absorb these new IDPs that have, sprung up due to more displacement of people? Do you think we have enough capacity? Are we sufficient enough to absorb these new IDPs and cater to them?
I think that Nigeria has a long way to go when it comes to issues of humanitarian management and all of those things. Because looking at the global trends, if you have a crisis at hand, you should be regular with updating the citizens of what is happening, how you are handling the crisis, and solutions that you are proffering to cushion the effect of such a crisis. But in the Nigerian context, we have government agencies that have been set up with mandates that are outdated, and they have not been reformed. How can you serve? NEMA was set up with a mandate that clearly cannot solve the problems of the IDPs now. But have we reformed NEMA to be able to contain the demands of the current humanitarian crisis? I don't think so. For instance, and I want to make this point very clear, the Benue State humanitarian crisis has not been put or recognized by the federal government of Nigeria. We have had camps set up in Benue State here. These camps have only been at the instance of the state government and some civil society interventions. We have not had a concerted effort or concerted directive of the federal government to take care of the humanitarian crisis in Benue State. So it's more like the Benue people have been left to their fate. And this will be also calling on the federal government. And one of the expectations of the protest was that the humanitarian crisis in Benue State should be taken over by federal government, and those people begin to receive a dignified response from the crisis, from the humanitarian crisis in Benue, so that we can begin to provide them with the necessary tools that they need to begin to live as human beings who have rights and privileges, and not just people who have been relegated to undignified patterns of life.
Now, since this incident occurred, many promises have been made, warnings have been issued, committees have been formed, and yet no significant arrest has been made so far. Now, what do you think about, this turnout?
Well, before I go to this point, let me add to the fact that the people who were attacked from Yerwata, they were moved to a designated settlement where there were expectations that they would be taken care of. As at yesterday, that I was aware of, there was no any assistance or food or any form of attention that was given to them, apart from humanitarian efforts that have been coordinated for these people. So that's on that part. And I think that that's an area that government should look into immediately, because these people have been through so much, not to also continue to suffer under hunger, rain, and other dehumanizing situations. So coming to the question you just asked, the issues of arrest in this crisis or this attack, we have not had, I'm not aware of any arrest that has been done. And mind you, it is not just about Yerwata. Like I told you, these attacks have been sustained over the last decade. We haven't had any known trials of these attackers. And as long as these people get away with these acts of violence against innocent civilians on Nigerian soil, they will be more emboldened to carry out these attacks. As we are speaking, we are still receiving reports from communities about letters of intent from these terrorists that have indicated interest to attack communities. Whether these threats are valid or not, the people are already agitated, the people are scared, the people are living in fear, and this fear is rightly justified because the terror that they have had to contend with will give them every reason to fear. We are Nigerians, and there's no body that is more Nigerian than the other. And we have also received credible information that most of these attackers are not even Nigerians. So one begins to wonder, why is the Nigerian government so in bed with terrorists who are coming outside of our Nigerian defined borders to attack our people, and they are able to find protection? In one of the videos circulating on the internet, one of the videos of a man who comes from Yerwata says that one of the persons who was apprehended during the attack in Yerwata had confessed that there were military personnel who were with them on that mission. That was why they were able to have that kind of precision carrying out such attacks on civilian communities. So these are very valid concerns, and if those kind of accounts are filtering out after incidents like this, then you should understand why arrests will not be made. It means that there is complicity within the security architecture, and then one begins to wonder, why will the government be paying a security agent who will also be double dealing on the part of terrorists? I remember a video that had come out before on Channels Television years ago about the dreaded gang leader in Benue State, Lete Wasagwaza, who had said in that video that he was approached by the Fulanis to fight on their side to take over Benue. This assertion has not been investigated. This assertion has been with us, and any of the subsequent attacks that have happened on Benue soil have all alluded to those kind of situations or conspiracies. So the people of Benue State are constantly living in fear of terror, of unverified information that has been filtering around our communities, and the fact that responses from government or government security agencies come very late. They've only come to verify the number of people that have been killed. Even in those situations, they have not been able to give the exact numbers as aligning with the numbers of the community leaders that those attacks have been taking place. So there's a whole lot of issues that we are dealing with here that will cause apprehension at all points. So government will have to act fast to close these gaps and give the people of Benue State, especially the vulnerable communities, a sense of belonging, a sense of assurance, and a sense of nationhood, that they are protected under the Nigerian state.
But do you think that state level or community-based, security structures would help or would be more effective in situations like this?
Absolutely. If security is given back to the community or grassroots level, it will enhance intelligence gathering. Because, for instance, the attack in Yewata, according to the CDS, as reported in national dailies, it says that the attackers were housed and taken to the community by the community members. One begins to wonder, if that information is true, why will the people be setting up their own people? Even if it's true, can it be justified? No. Is the state protecting our people against such infiltrations? No. If we have security gathering and the security is at the grassroots and there's a structured reporting system, those kind of incidences will be stemmed, because the community level security setup will be able to detect such infiltrations and report them to the appropriate authorities, and action will be taken before those mayhem will be taken on the people. So security at the grassroots will enhance the security architecture or security guarantees for our people. That I can guarantee that.
All right. Now, beyond the condolences, now what do you think the government's plans should be when it comes to economic recovery, particularly for the affected persons and Benue State as a whole?
Like I said, if we put all these attacks in perspective, the economic losses to the Benue people are enormous. But because we have a data gap in Nigeria, we cannot authoritatively say that this is how much we have lost in terms of Naira and Kobo. But if we can put that in estimates, we are losing billions of Naira because our states have lost its production capacity up to 50%. Most of our local communities are no longer producing. Food prices have skyrocketed due to the inflation and the fact that we have less food compared to what we've had before. For the very first time in Benue State, a tuber of yam is selling in Benue State for up to 4,000–5,000 naira. This is unimaginable. Nobody would have believed that food would cost this much in Benue. A fruit of a mango costs between 700 to 1,000. This is as a result of low production, and because our people are not producing. All these are economic losses. If we are to put this into perspective, then you can see how much the state is also losing in revenues. So the federal government will have to step up its responsibility to marshal out a plan that the people can recover from this non-production. Because as we stand, if we do not go back to producing what we can eat, then there's a more serious food security issue that we'll be faced with in the next couple of months, leading to a year or two. Because one, the people at the IDPs, they are no longer going to their farms, and they are in numbers. Makurdi alone has over 800,000 IDPs. Consistently over the years, over 4 million people have been displaced. If Benue is a population of, let's say, 12 to 13 million people, and we're saying that 50% of that population is not producing, it means that the ones that are producing will not be able to cater for that population. Our Benue State has been christened the food basket of the nation. It is because of the food production that was coming out of this state. But I can tell you that where we stand now, Benue basket is no longer fit. It doesn't have enough to even take care of our small nuclear families, talk more of producing enough for commercial agriculture or subsistence living. So the federal government, the state, should begin to think of securing our lands and bringing it back to the people so they'll be able to go back into their normal way of life, which is food production. Otherwise, the losses are enormous, and it's going to be worse in the next couple of years if nothing is being done deliberately and intentionally.
All right, and now the president has come and gone. What reforms or improvement do the people of Benue hope to see following this visit of the president?
Personally, I'll be direct. I'm not expecting a committee as a way to end, as a solution to solving this problem. I'm expecting decisive action. I'm expecting that if the president had discovered that he was given mixed security briefing, that is a breach of national security already. And I am thinking, and my expectation is very high, is that those responsible for such misinformation, there should be consequences. And I'm expecting that not just arrests should be made, but people should be prosecuted and punished for this acts of violence and deliberate genocidal killing of our people. I'm also expecting that, and the Benue people are also looking forward to the government of Nigeria standing up to the occasion to provide protection, especially around the corridors between Nasarawa and Benue State. If the federal government can set up an independent commission to investigate the remote causes of the attacks, why they are who is housing the terrorists in Nasarawa State, and why hasn't there been any closure or an end to that accommodation of terrorists who operate from that zone, killing people into Benue communities, stretching up to Guma, Makudi, Logo, Taka, and Buruku local government, because these are the border communities that are closer to the Nasarawa state border, and all these communities have reported that those attacks have been coming from those, including Agatu. Those attacks have been originating from Nasarawa state, and Nasarawa state has paid a lip service to paying solidarity to the Benue people without exposing the real source of the killer squad. Why are they always coming from Nasarawa? Why hasn't Nasarawa exposed or dismantled such terror attacks on Benue people?
All right, thank you so much for your time and for your insight on this, Gideon Inyom. Thank you so much. We do appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
And with that, we've come to the end of today's conversation on Signature Morning. Make sure to stay tuned as the program continues in a moment. I am Uchenna Chimdi Oluoha. Have a lovely day.
Every second, every minute, every day, news is breaking, events occur, and there are new developments. At Signature TV, we follow these stories objectively, bringing all sides without bias, explaining the complex issues, breaking down the numbers, and investigating the issues behind the news. Anywhere and everywhere, near or far, wherever the news is, we will be there. Signature TV. News in your pocket.
The once peaceful community of Ehamufu says they are under siege, their farmlands, homes ravaged, and their freedom taken away by criminals they suspect to be Fulani herdsmen. In a bold and desperate cry for justice, the women of Ehamufu embarked on a 20-kilometer trek from Ehamufu camp to Ikem, the local government headquarters. protesting what they told Signature TV were unbearable conditions that have turned their ancestral homelands into a battleground.
Mana nke ikpeazụ a kịta wutere anyị ma anyị ndị ara ekpatara anyị ji mewe protest onwego onye jiri anyị onwego onye anyị na-ekpara mana nwute dị na nwaanyị adịghị agazi ugbo kịta bifo anyị aga ugbo kịta o shiri ike onye arịọ ka m ga-akpọ ndị ekwuru onye ọnwa gị kwuru onye ọnwa ya nye m ihe oriri ka m kọrọ agbara m kpọ ọva